Hey everybody, welcome back. This video is now going to be shot in a side-by-side comparison rig that I made in a previous video. So with this, you get to see my Google Pixel XL, which I am now looking at, and their lenses are about maybe 2 inches apart, and the Panasonic HC-V770K. I'm really starting to like this camera, but I have yet personally to see these two side by side. So I was working with Adobe Premiere and I finally decided that I wanted to figure out how to make a side-by-side video, shrink two sets and put them side by side. So they're not going to be full screen, I'm still working on that, but at least you'll get to see both of them next to each other. So for the most part, I should pretty much be center framed in both of them. So what first thing I'm going to do is, obviously you can tell there's a bit of a color difference here. I'm going to start off with the audio. So I'm going to split the audio, and first we're going to start off with how does it sound coming out of the cell phone. So for that, we're going to switch to cell phone audio. All right. So it's probably not the greatest. I mean, it's been working for previous videos, but it could probably be better. I wanted to use a particular microphone with it that was an external plug-in mic, and it didn't seem to want to take it. So being able to record with an external audio source, I didn't feel like messing around with it too much. I did eventually want to get a better camera, and hence I did. But this is the audio track taken from the cell phone. Now let's switch over to the Panasonic camera. Okay, so now we have the audio coming off of the Panasonic camera, and this has a microphone on top with what's essentially a boom mic, and it's aimed directly at me. Now it's labeled as 5.1. I currently have it set at 2.1, and I believe the wind noise cancellation or whatever that was called, I forget. It would help if I knew this stuff before I made the video, right? I have that set to normal, but obviously there's no wind in here. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do with that. The rest of the video now is going to be back on the cell phone audio for the duration of this clip so that we know where the camera audio ends. Okay, so now that we're back on cell phone audio, I want to take a look at the color quality. So I know that the Pixel XL it has a better engine to render more vivid colors. Things pop out, they stand out. They look much brighter, and it seems that on the Panasonic camera, that's not so much the case. We can start with the light on the wall behind me here. It's a light teal. So whether or not that shows up on the Panasonic is one story, but I know it shows up pretty much accurate on the cell phone. I will give props to the cell phone in this area, mostly because it has much better color correction and it probably has a better sensor. It's just evolved like that. For some reason, I expected the Panasonic camera to be a little better, but in previous videos, it didn't really seem to turn out that way. Looking side by side, as I'm looking at the average cell phone video compared to the Panasonic camera's video, the Panasonic seems to have a little grain to it, especially when you zoom in farther. It does appear that on the cell phone there isn't so much graininess and noise to it. That's a benefit, of course, but I'm trying to justify as much as I can having the camera. So if we move on, I'm eventually going to pick this rig up, we're going to go downstairs, and we're going to see how each one handles light to dark changes. So another thing you'll notice is I have a bright spot right here above my head, and that's reflecting off of the light that's directly above me. On the Panasonic camera, I have backlight compensation turned on, and that appears pretty well to, at least from my preview screen, be able to not make me a dark subject even though the area behind me is well lit. I'm not sure if it's using face tracking for that or not. I mean, I have the indicator turned off on the LCD, but I'm sure it still does that in the background to know the subject from the background. So The cell phone doesn't have that, and its focus may be jumping in and out. I can't tell because obviously I can't see myself, so that's a big plus for the Panasonic camera. And also, with that, I can take the whole rig, I can turn it around, and I can flip the screen on the camera back to where I'm facing, and then I can see both and record both side by side. So the colors of this plant, as you'll notice in the Panasonic, isn't quite as vivid. Now they are a little dark. It is kind of dead on the edges because it just doesn't know how to stay alive. I mean, look at this. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But on the cell phone, the video seems to be much brighter, the colors are more vivid, and they stand out. Again, that's a plus for the cell phone. So it's not looking super great for this camera. Man, am I really trying to justify this. So let me grab this rig off of here, and we're going to take a trip back downstairs toward the kitchen. And this will do a transition into a darker area with a main area lit. And we're going to see how both of these work. So, grabbing my rig, I'm going to turn this around. Okay, so now I can see both. And they look to be pretty well accurate here. So here is the aisle sign that I use to block off the entrance so the cats can't get downstairs and dust doesn't come up. You'll notice that the cell phone has a pretty clear image, and so does the camera. But at least in the preview on both of these, it looks like the cell phone turns that what is actually very red into almost an orange. It's kind of weird. If I look at the camera, red actually appears red. It's much closer to the actual color. So that's a benefit for the Panasonic. In here you'll notice that we have our makeshift, what is now kitchen. This actually is a bathroom. And I showed you the thing down here, which you'll notice in the camera you can see past my wrist, but in the cell phone you can't. So it's not quite as wide an angle. You get a little bit more view out of the Panasonic. Bonus for the Panasonic. So out of all this, we're going to go down here. My cell phone's about to die. I forgot to plug it in, guys. So right over here is not lit. The only lit area that is lit is coming from the right. In the preview that I see here on the Panasonic, shadows show much better, and it seems to be much clearer with less grain. On the cell phone, there seems to be quite a bit of grain, which is weird because earlier that didn't happen. I'm going to tap on the cell phone and see if it'll focus and make that better. No, it absolutely does not. So, from what I can tell, Panasonic is winning there. That's cool. Let's go all the way into a dark area here. You'll notice that the cell phone brightens everything up, but it pretty much makes everything visible, which to the naked eye is actually not. It's more like the video coming from the Panasonic camera. So when it comes to shadows, even though they're not boosted, the Panasonic camera seems to be doing a better job. We come over here. It seems to be a bit of washout when it comes to the cell phone. When it comes to the Panasonic, it seems that, well, everything is just about right. Nothing's washed out, everything's crisp and clear. That's a huge win for the Panasonic in my book. Let's come down to a view of the hallway, which is extremely dark, and actually I'm having trouble seeing what's in front of the door. So if you look at the cell phone, you suddenly see a lot of grain. But when you look at the Panasonic camera, it really is just about that dark. That's actually pretty accurate. Now, my lights do work. Or at least one of them does. We come down over here, and everything on the cell phone seems to be super over brightened. But everything on the Panasonic camera is a little bit closer, with the exception of the shadows under the desk and at the window, which seem to be just slightly darker than what I'm actually seeing. But when it comes to the cell phone, what it shows in the window as a reflection is actually a little brighter than what I actually see with the naked eye. So it's somewhere in between. but because of the quality and the wide angle and the shadows that are a little more appropriate, I'm going to give this win to the Panasonic. And before my phone dies, should have thought about this, we will come back over here. Again, the hallway on that side is not lit. Looking at the cell phone, it appears to be lit. As far as the Panasonic goes, it thinks the room is slightly darker on that end, which it is because the lights aren't on. Again, win for the Panasonic. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm really going to do a turnaround test because both of these are supposed to be at 60 frames a second. So we're going to see which one is smoother. I seem to be getting a little jumping and stuttering when it comes to the cell phone. The Panasonic doesn't seem to have such a big issue. Both seem to be fairly good, but I'm not sure if it's going to show up on video that way, but the cell phone seems to be a lot more jumpy. And as far as I can tell in the preview, the Panasonic camera is extremely smooth. So, at least in my book, that is a massive win for the Panasonic. So, I will turn this around and use the rig to see myself. So, how do I decide what I like better? Well, I'm going to go with the Panasonic. I have yet to see this stuff edited on the PC and actually put them side by side. But for my initial comparison right now, I'm going to say the win goes to the Panasonic camera. As good a quality a camera as this is at close to $600, I'm actually starting to like it. I think it's worth it. So I need to save up a little bit, actually a lot. I will probably get a wide angle lens or at least borrow one from somebody so I can test it out. And I want to see how much better the viewing angle for that is. And we'll go from there. So I need to make a couple gimbal arms over my desk, which I'll do a video on that later. And I need to find a nice waterproof case, kind of like what the drone is in, for this camera because I'm probably going to take this on vacation with me. And we're going to vacation on a boat. Actually, it's a trawler. And I do not want to drop this thing in the water. I do not want it wet. If it had a waterproof case, that'd be awesome, but it probably doesn't. But you know what? I'm actually pretty happy with what's on here so far. So this rig's getting kind of heavy in my arm. I didn't really think about that. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Hope you guys liked the video. It's a real nice comparison. Like, share, and subscribe, guys. And I will see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching, everybody.